John Lennon was a remarkably complex figure, both as a musician and as an individual. Renowned for his creativity, his work with the Beatles, his solo career, and his advocacy for peace, Lennon became one of the most influential cultural icons of the 20th century. Known for his candidness, Lennon was never afraid to share his opinions, often voicing strong views on personal and artistic matters. As much as he was loved, he also made enemies along the way, including a few notable musicians. Here are 5 artists that John Lennon openly expressed his dislike for. 1. Bob Dylan. Although John Lennon drew early inspiration from Bob Dylan, his feelings toward the American musician shifted over time. By the late 1970s, Lennon had grown dismissive of Dylan's work, particularly his 1979 album Slow Train Coming, which reflected Dylan's conversion to Christianity and featured religious themes. In a 1979 audio diary, Lennon criticized the album, noting that the song You Gotta Serve Somebody was particularly grating. He remarked that Dylan's performance was mediocre, the singing was pathetic, and the lyrics were embarrassing. Lennon made it clear that his interest in Dylan's music had waned, and he no longer paid much attention to it. Joan Baez and Judy Collins. In a 1971 interview with Jan Wenner, Lennon made it clear that he had little respect for certain folk musicians. When Wenner compared Lennon's working-class hero to Bob Dylan's music, Lennon expressed disdain for Joan Baez and Judy Collins, 2 prominent folk artists of the time. Lennon stated, "I never liked the fruity Judy Collins and Joan Baez and all of that stuff. The only folk music I know is about miners in Newcastle or Dylan." Lennon didn't consider himself influenced by artists like Baez and Collins, and made it known that their music didn't appeal to him. Frank Sinatra, a legendary crooner from the Rat Pack era, was another artist whose music John Lennon found uninspiring. Despite Sinatra's massive popularity, Lennon criticized his singing style, calling it outdated and irrelevant. He remarked, "Frank is a cool guy, but his music just doesn't speak to me. It's too old-fashioned. I prefer something with a bit more edge." Lennon's preference for a more modern and rebellious sound led him to dismiss Sinatra's classic tunes. Frank Zappa. Lennon had strong opinions about artistic integrity, and he didn't hold back when criticizing artists who he felt were self-indulgent or obsessed with proving their genius. Frank Zappa, known for his avant-garde music and bold personality, was a target of Lennon's ire. While Zappa prided himself on his artistic freedom and unique sound, Lennon was critical of his approach, saying Zappa was screaming, "Look at me, I'm a genius. What do I have to do to prove myself?" Despite this, Lennon's own work, particularly his album Sometime in New York City, seemed to borrow elements from Zappa's experimental style, showcasing a complicated relationship between the two. Paul McCartney. The relationship between John Lennon and Paul McCartney was famously turbulent, especially in the years following the Beatles' breakup in 1970. While they had once been close collaborators, their bond became strained as personal and musical tensions mounted. McCartney's release of Ram in 1971, which contained jabs at Lennon, set off a series of public insults between the former bandmates. Lennon retaliated with the song How Do You Sleep, which took direct aim at McCartney, mocking his songwriting and even referencing McCartney's hit song Yesterday with the line, "The only thing you've done was yesterday." Their rivalry was one of the most bitter in rock history, with both men exchanging barbs in the press and through their music for years. In summary, John Lennon wasn't shy about expressing his dislike for certain musicians, whether it was due to artistic differences or personal conflicts. His opinions, while harsh at times, were a testament to his uncompromising nature and his commitment to his own vision of music and creativity.